Hey, welcome back to Drive Time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula, and we do it live, bringing you all the hot takes, headlines, and unfiltered opinions that matter most. Whether you're stuck in traffic, cruising to work, or just chilling at home, we want to hear from you. Today's topics are all about the big stories making waves, but we're not just here to talk at you. We want to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your take on everything from the latest political debates to the everyday challenges we face. Remember, whether you're on the left, the right, or somewhere in between, we welcome all points of view. So grab that hands-free device, dial us up, and let's dive into the conversation. What's on your mind? It's Drive Time. Call in now. This is how it works, Josh. Sleepy. Good morning, everyone. You know, you start showing up at a certain day, at a certain time, and you're consistent about it. Like every single time I'd go to the Italian deli at 7:45, the guy would know, oh, there's pasta. Get his prosciutto ready, and then my prosciutto would be ready. Consistency, Josh. All about it.
It's true.
And as I'm wearing what I call my Tony Soprano shirt, I wore the shirt with my good friends Eric Hollerback and Alex Strenger. I met those guys at the Cause Festival. Alex Strenger is a right-wing. He's a Zionist supporter. You know what I'm saying? He does rickshaws. He's kind of like in the Alex Stein community of, you know, comedians and whatnot. Like when we did the Minds Festival, we were at it was called the Vulcan Theater in Austin, Texas. And the Minds Festival, I think it was on a Saturday, or it might have been on a Friday, but on Thursday or Friday, the night before, they had some comedy. And Alex went up there, and Leandra Johnny went up there. And I actually, you know, I told Leandra, I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not doing work on Jim anymore, but I'll pass your information on to the producer. You should definitely be on that show. And then I met her at the Cause. I met her at the Third Eye Carnival in Tennessee last year, 2025, in April, when there was tornado warnings. We had those same talks about the Bolshevik Revolution. You might have heard me mention her name. And, you know, I'm not throwing any shade at her. I think she's wrong. It's weird because I kind of say that, like, you know, and I say it kind of just soft-handedly, like that a lot of conservatives sometimes, I feel like they have this kind of like inherent bias or this inherent racist, Don DeBar talked about it yesterday. If there were people just blonde hair, blue eyes, or blonde haired, hazel-eyed people, so alike, they would still have fights with each other. There's something genetically wired inside of us. And then this is why they get away with scapegoating immigrants all the time, all over the place, everywhere. And I'm sure that, you know, it would be a strain on a system in different countries when you have an overload of mass amount of people coming in. But the majority of those people who have the stones, Sleepy J, to travel the way they do, right? The people who do that, they're usually stand-up people and can work. The majority of the people who go from these countries, you know, they're either escaping some crazy conditions, and if they get to where they got to get to, they usually can find a way to stay out of trouble and be productive. I'd say the majority of them. And, you know, a lot of times the countries they go and go into and live, United States of America, be one of the countries that caused the problems in their countries to begin with. I mean, England has to take everybody because they've been around for so long,
right?
Causing so many fucking problems. Good morning, Gabrielle Freedom. Right there. You know, 9 people already on the YouTubes. That's what happens, Josh. You don't even advertise. You have a slow, soft opening, consistency, right?
That's true.
When I make my Sunday gravy, it's consistency. Now, the taste is a little bit different because depending on different meats, that's the Italian cooking. You kind of cook what you got. You got to be resourceful, right? You got to take a Shangad, tough piece of meat, Morning Angel, and you got to make it soft and tender, the pizzaiolo style. I got a nice big sirloin. They were half price at my Publix. Instead of like $19.99 a pound, they were $10.99 a pound. It was a big, giant sirloin. I'm going to cook that son of a bitch up in a red gravy, which is a red tomato sauce for all you out there. It's not gravy like your meatloaf. My co-host today, he'll be here eventually after he takes care of his daddy duties in the morning. He'll talk about Sunday marinara sauce or gravy. Let's make a bet out there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you if you're all here. This is the call-in show. This is Drive Time in the Morning, right? We did the show yesterday on WBAI. Very successful show. The phone lines get locked up all the time. I'm trying to get more time, but it's hard. And I don't know what that saying is. It says, but if he will not go to the mountain will come to him. So I'm bringing the mountain to you. I'm bringing the Drive Time in the Morning to you every morning right here. 561-247-2721. The phone lines are open. Guys, we need you guys to call them because we got to test the phone lines. We got to test the cues. We got to see how it works. We got to see if we can leave messages. We're testing the whole system. My engineer, but producer slash co-host, good friend, man, he's on the Mountain Dew because he's been on for so long.
Oh.
You shouldn't talk shit, Sleepy J, because you've already had your coffee and transitioned to your Mountain Dew. Last night, don't tell nobody. I had a Sprite Zero. Shh.
All right, let's get this call in.
We got a call already. Let's go. Caller, you're on the air. Who is it? Where you calling from?
I had a Sprite Zero. It was Fred. Fred, how's it going? Good morning.
Who is it? Fred Ed?
It's Fred.
Fred.
Well, Fred, it was
Just
very
Fred,
nice for you to
you
get
know.
your ass up today.
Fred. Well, yeah, occasionally I got to get out of bed. Oh,
I
geez.
feel that.
I haven't even had coffee yet.
Fred, this is my second
That's
cup. And a good friend got me this cup. You see, this is a Truth Wire cup. It's one of a kind. A good friend got it for me.
One of a kind. Oh, when do we get those?
Two of a kind, right? Maybe? I don't know. I think it's the
No,
only
no,
one.
they're-
Actually. I think there's two
Yeah,
shirts.
There's only, well, since the original store that I set up for you was flagged as copyright infringement, I haven't told anybody else about it. So I'm announcing this now on the FU. If somebody else wants another one, I know where you can get them.
There you go. Maybe you can put the link in
And
the
the
chat.
T-shirts too.
Ooh.
Actually, I did the Truth Light design smaller on another shirt. I think it'll look better on TV. Well, shoot, on anybody.
I got to say this
Good morning.
much. Good morning. I got to say this much. It's pretty awesome to have you and Gabriel in the chats because you guys were like one of the first, a long time, old school, original listeners, whatnot. We've had a chance to meet. We met at the Third Eye Carnival. I got to meet Midler, a beautiful, is it a macaw or just a parrot?
Amazon parrot.
Amazon parrot.
Amazon, yeah.
By the way,
macaws have a long tail.
Okay. Amazon parrot, she's beautiful. She flew over to me and I got freaked out because I'm a big wuss. Fred kind of laughed. It was in the kitchen. We were at the Third Eye Carnival. By the way, Johnny Kalajczak, professor, the Taoist professor, he said to say hi. He said he made sure he goes, hey, man, can you please tell Fred I send my love to him? I'm like, definitely, man. Johnny Kalajczak is great people. While I got you here, Fred.
Definitely send greetings back.
What's that?
I said, definitely send greetings back.
By the way, what was that message up there?
Who? Hold on, I'll put it back.
I was looking for the guest co-host so I could put it in my tweet.
Should be
It's
Kyle.
in Kyle Anzalone today.
Okay.
Who's the
Cool.
red
All
sauce
right.
specialist?
I think there's going to be a fight between you and Kyle over that.
No. Kyle does
Red
grow his own
sauce,
tomatoes.
okay.
So let me ask you a question. If I'm gonna put like a little. How do you really? This is what I'm gonna talk to Kyle about today. And everybody, you're invited to join in. Amazing chat yesterday. Call in if you want. Chat away. Do what you got to do. How do we deal with all the nonsense? You know, there was the CIA director. I don't know. I think it was Woolsey. I think his name was. He says when people don't know what to believe, and only then. That's when our operation is complete. How do you kind of make sense of all this madness we're seeing around us right now? Like, I mean, Kyle Anzalone is so like specific, and he can compartmentalize and make sure that he goes through every single one of the details. Even Scott Horton's kind of like that. They're masters of the details, and I think that's what makes them very successful in their writings from antiwar.com or the Libertarian Institute. But when I see shit again, it's just like more of the same. In other words, I feel like it's just white noise at this point, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like what am I going to talk about today? You see the headlines. It's like the same old bullshit. Oh, we're bombing. We're not bombing. We're doing this. Trump said that. And I'm like, what makes it any different from the week before to the week before to the week before that? It's the same bullshit. Nobody's doing anything about it. You see the hero worshiping out there, right? It's just like, I feel like we're stuck in the Matrix meets Groundhog's Day, right? How do you fucking make sense of this shit and prioritize, Fred?
I mostly stay away from the corporate news completely. That's mostly what I do. I cannot listen to it. I cannot look at it. And the people that are regurgitating it regularly, I avoid them too.
Yeah.
We got to go and keep it as factual and honest and deep dive as detailed as possible. Not deep dive. You don't want to go deep dive with every nut, but you got to stick to what the reality is. And we've just got to keep saying it. We've got to keep talking. And the message is getting out there. There are more people hearing us. There are more people who are understanding exactly what's going on. The first year, I'm going to say this and then I'll shut up. The first year that I was screaming on Meta about Palestine, I was getting no engagements. I got nothing. I mean, I would tag people and they wouldn't see it. And all of a sudden, you got like a crack in the dam. And people started hitting the like button and sharing and responding. And then, I mean, I got like 50 people that were already on my friends list who actually were seeing the message and were passing it on and were also posting about it. So it's you know, I almost gave up. I know what a death trap Meta is. But just keep on pounding on it.
Sleepy?
All right, your turn.
Sleepy was saying something.
Just I miss all kinds of stuff. Like I just don't like. I have to like go to people's pages directly to like get it shit from them. Like it's on any of these platforms.
Oh yeah, that's a totally separate problem. But yes, I understand that completely.
It's maddening.
Guys, call us in 561-247-2721. Look, I know I have to have a little bit of running with the mainstream media. Obviously, I put some news on for my mother. She's a stroke victim. She doesn't speak, so I don't even know if she's. I got to read her facial expressions, and I think she's even getting sick and tired of paying attention to it. The quicker I get to Turner Classic Movies, the better for her. But I do pay attention to what's going on because, unfortunately, the guys who control the levers of power, they're only speaking on those channels, right? And I want to be able to be informed to see what they're saying, to see how they're lying to the people, because it's just one great giant lie. I mean, this guy who they chose right now, and I don't believe that there's a lot of free will when it comes to the president of the United States. I believe he's just a puppet of the ruling class, obviously, and they're just taking orders. But it's kind of interesting who they choose. Right now, we're going through this thing right now, situation, and Kim Iverson talked about it. So I'm a big election person, right? Because I believe if we are to live in a democracy, if we are to live into what we call the people's choice, the election system should be the holy grail of that actual democracy. We don't have real democracy. We don't have freedom, right, or choice if we don't have fair elections. Now the election systems are weird because at one point, the grassroots Donald Trump, who had the higher approval rating than he's ever had, right now his approval rating is at its worst. Like people are disgusted. They feel like he's a liar. A lot of people see him for the con man he is. They're in this Iran war that we're spending money while our gas is going up. Eggs and milk still are a ridiculous price. So they're pissed at him. But now, all of a sudden, when he endorses somebody, they win. When he was a grassroots candidate at his highest rating, his candidates would lose. It doesn't make sense now, and people are starting to pick this up. This is something that Kim had talked about. I have never. This is why I question elections. During the Bernie Sanders movement, and some of you out there, we met in the Bernie Sanders movements. We were Feel the Burn people, right? We all got played ourselves. I think the majority of the people that we talk to, when we do talk to them, I'm like, yeah, we got played. We admitted it, right? We took our pie on the face. We wiped it off. And we were straight up that we made a mistake and we did wrong. That's what some of these Trump people need to do because they still got pie on their face and they're telling people that they don't have pie on their face. But I've never seen the enthusiasm like I saw in a grassroots, anti-establishment candidate. That's where you see the enthusiasm. But yet he would lose to Hillary Clinton, or he'd lose to Joe Biden in the areas where he shouldn't have lost because he had the enthusiasm and he had the people going for him. This is Bernie Sanders. And it made no sense. Almost the same pattern. The only thing that's different is now Bernie Sanders, the establishment cuck he isn't in office, and people aren't winning underneath him anymore because he's, who knows who he endorses or talks to now. Now he's just the establishment. But Donald Trump, whoever he's endorsing, while his approval ratings are at the lowest, they're winning. What does that tell you about elections? And like I've spoke about, Blackstone, when it came to Thomas Massey's elections, the guy who is he's a marketing analyst over at Blackstone, Sam Khan, who started the private equity venture capitalist company that owns the hardware and software company that counts the elections for the Thomas Massey election. Plus, he has had a hand in the ballot making company that in that same district, Thomas Massey. All of a sudden, it's fugazi. The numbers are turned upside down, right? And people have to understand this ain't about Democrat or Republican. It's about ruling class and the rest of us. And they want to protect the fucking ruling class, and they're doing it with elections now. And it's crazy to me. People aren't going, this is fucking nuts. But people are so divided, right? The 2020 election. So how many smart people do you see out there, guys? And it's like their gotcha thing now. And this is in the mainstream media. You'll probably see some clips. So do you believe in the 2020 elections results, yes or no? And if you say no, supposedly you are casted as a crazy person, as a conspiracy theorist, as a nut job. Meanwhile, the people who are sitting there saying that believe in those results, right? The results, they didn't see those results come to fruition. They were told by the state, who was told by a private equity company, yeah, these are the numbers. Blackstone, these are the numbers, right? I mean, it's so fucking stupid out there. But that's what we're fucking dealing with. Sorry for cursing so much. The coffee is good. Fred, did you get your coffee or are you on Mountain Dew?
I know, I got my coffee.
What kind of coffee do you drink?
Seattle's Best, I think. It's organic. I can get from Wally World.
Nice.
It's $6 for 12
Cream and
ounces.
sugar?
It's about the best price. Oh, yeah. No, black.
Me too. That's real
Just
coffee
black.
drinkers. Got to drink it black. Fred, anything else to say, my
Hey,
man?
it's not bad. No, I think you got it right. We know the system.
You could always jump in.
We know the system is corrupted.
Yeah.
The system is corrupted. Between the electronic machines and who does the counting. And I mean, Galen, whatever
The guy who beat
idiot's
Thomas
name that won
Massey.
against.
Yeah.
Like, the mail-in ballots were 95% or 100% for him. I mean,
No, not at all. The mail-in ballots.
The mail-in.
They got about a little bit under 20% of their total vote. Both Thomas Massey and his opponent, and they got about the same. 55% of those mail-in ballots went to Galvin or Gallon, whatever the fuck. Nobody even knows his name.
Okay.
And 45% went to Thomas Massey.
All right.
But
all right. Well,
it's dead by 1,000 cuts, Fred.
Well, it wasn't that big a difference. There wasn't that big a difference. And $30 million at least was spent on advertising for that idiot. And you get the geriatrics. I'm sorry. I'm almost there. But you get them going out in droves and they watch the corporate news. They watch Fox News, the Republicans. And I mean, an AI generated image of Massey with AOC and Rashida Tlaib broadcast on television.
Yeah.
Come on. They get brainwashed. All right. I'll let you go. I'll let somebody else get in the queue or get on the phone.
Fred,
you later.
thank you so much for
Bye,
calling
Sleepy.
in. Thanks for getting up
Jeff.
nice and early. We'll be here for your coffee time, buddy, in the morning.
All right. Later.
Truly love you, man. Gentle fucking giant right there, my friend.
I didn't get any alerts, so I don't think anyone's in the queue yet.
Okay, no alerts. Nobody's in the queue. Guys, and somebody put it up. Galrain? Well, I don't give a shit.
Galrain.
Dude, let me tell you something. It was so funny.
Yeah, huge Zionist prick, man.
When Tina, was it Nina Turner? Nina Turner, when she
Yeah.
was running in for her seat in Ohio, and I think she ran against Sheldon Brown or something. I didn't know if it was a male or female or anything. I never seen the person until election day. And, once again, that was an all mail-in thing situation. So it's now death by 1,000 cuts, right? They can pump some of the mail-ins. I mean, there's no chain of custody from the ballot company. The software, they can flip the software. They can cluster and stuff a couple extra ballots. And there's so many easy ways to do it. Nobody's watching them. It's not done in the purview of the American citizenry. It's ridiculous, our election system. This is why fucking we're at where we're at. And they get to choose their leaders. And they're doing it right now. The Donald Trump thing, they're goading, they're floating that he's got like 100% approval. Anybody he's endorsed 100% of the time now wins their primary, the Republican primary and stuff. And they're trying to say, like, well, he's the king of the Republican Party. All the rhinos get out of here, which Republican in name only, right? Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Those are Republicans. They vote along with you 96% of the times. Thomas Massey said, I vote along with the Republicans 91% of the times. How am I a Democrat?
Yeah.
Make it make sense. Guys, call on in 561-247-2721. 561-247-2721. Do we have one person yet on? We still don't have anybody on that Facebook. We're going to get somebody on Facebook one of these days.
Did you check if it's not friends only or whatever?
I did not. I had a list, Josh, and I didn't get through it.
Hey, you only so much time in a day.
All right, so here I am. It's live. It's live. Let me share it, guys. If you can do me a favor, guys, I need all your help when it comes to the show now. If you want to share the YouTube, you want to share the Rumble. There's a Rumble out there. Let me go check out and see how many people are on the Rumble. Hold on. How can I forget my Rumble peeps? 6 of you guys in the morning. What's up, Adingo Amy, baby? Entenmann Bill, call on in when you're ready, man. We're here for you. We got a lot of people hanging on out. Let me see. How do you share this Facebook? What's with this Facebook thing?
I haven't logged in there in like 8 years. So,
holy cow.
Something like that.
At least from the StreamYard, it copies everything on the Facebook. Today, in a little bit, our co-host will be Kyle Anzalone from the Libertarian Institute or from antiwar.com, wherever you want to peg him. He is a libertarian, but he didn't support Donald Trump, and there was a decent amount of people in that party who did not support Donald Trump, even though the chair at the time, Angela McArdle, Dave Smith, Clinton Russell, some of the brass screwed up that party for good. And I know a lot of people always like, third party's the answer, but I don't know. The agreement between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is like, hey, we can cheat each other as long as one of the two of us win. Never, ever, 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 ever can a third party win. We can't let them in the door. And they make that agreement. The two-party illusion, as our good friend Ryan Christian used to
we got a Kyle.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, he's back. He used to take the short bus to school, and now he's here from the short bus. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Anzalone's got his background up. Look at him.
Hey, Pasta, thanks for having me and waiting on me this morning. Got the little girl dropped off, so I'm ready to go.
Nice, man. First question. Do you call it sauce or gravy? Did we have this discussion before?
Sauce. My family's always called it sauce.
Okay. That's it for Kyle Anzalone on the show today, guys. We want to thank you for coming on. Take your tomatoes and shove them up your, it's gravy for me.
I've always called it
wanted
sauce.
Yeah.
I've always called it sauce.
So, Kyle, we already had a caller. We're waiting for another caller. Guys, if you want to speak to Kyle Anzalone and Pasta Jardula, maybe you want to wink at Sleepy J, we're here. Call us at 561-247-2721. That's 561-247-2721. And do us a favor, share it out there, get it out there. We're building a little consistency. This is our soft opening week. Yesterday, we had on Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski. We had about 3 phone callers. Don DeBar called on in, so that was fun. And then on a Tuesday, we had Nico House. We had Entenmann Bill call on in. That was fun too as well. And on Monday, we kind of just did our first test run. So we're going to be doing this Monday through Friday, every 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time.
10 p.m.
And
No.
10 a.m.
We ain't doing 14 hours, Pasta.
Let me drink more of my coffee here. I wanted to do a morning show just so I can wear my sunglasses because I got like 12 pair. So I started a morning show just so I can wear my sunglasses. Kyle, you're here. We were talking. How do you make sense? And I want to know, and I'm being genuine when I say this. I'm not being a fucking prick. How do you sort out all the doo-doo? I mean, when I see a lot of the headlines, and I know you're very meticulous, you can compartmentalize, you have to know the facts step by step, but it's almost like a guide to me sometimes when I hear you go through the step-by-step stuff. And this is not just you in general. This is not just you. This is in general. It's like somebody's giving me a replay of the WWE wrestling. I don't care about when he gave an elbow or threw somebody against the ropes and did a body slam. It's all fake, right? And I hear this stuff. It's becoming like white noise to me. So how do you make sense of the shit? And where are we currently at now with the war in Iran? What are we going to be told we're going to do? What's going to happen? Where is it going from here? Let's make Kyle nice and big. So as he explains this, ladies and gentlemen, his first appearance on the morning show, Kyle Anzalone. And he'll be here every Thursday, by the way.
Yeah, so I guess typically my process for like understanding what's happening in world events has always been to, read American media, read foreign media, particularly, if we're at war with Iran, I'm reading Iranian media. If we're at war in Ukraine, I'm reading Russian media. And, trying to parse between the two, as well as listening to analysts from both sides, particularly the opposition side. So whether that's, Professor Morandi for Iran and just making sure you're listening to the Russian officials speak about the war. That way you really have like a comprehensive view. And with all that information, you could then kind of, like you say, there's all these little things that go on, like the elbows in the WWE matches that nobody cares about. But if you don't in a real fight, all the little pieces of damage that get done really do contribute to the overall picture. And so that's how I paint the overall picture for myself. And then I always try to communicate to my audience, because I think on my show, people like all those little details. So I do try to give them those little details, but also just be able to give like a broad picture of the situation. I will say with the war in Iran, I feel like I've had to, and I'm trying to recalibrate my process a little bit, because the information coming out from the American side is so insane that to respond to everything that Donald Trump says is, it's a fool's errand. It's pointless. A lot of what he's saying doesn't reflect reality whatsoever. And so I don't even know what to do with a lot of Trump's statements now. A lot of them I kind of ignore at this point, especially when they're repetitive. I mean, this week he reposted on Truth Social his thing about how CNN and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times are engaging in treason, all this absurdity. And he posted it last week too. So it really is just trying to deal with an absurd White House right now to parse through and figure out what's going on. I know a lot of people are really against like Barack Ravid and stuff like that, but sometimes he has good scoops in there. So there's a lot going on that you need to read. Don't believe any single source that you read, but read a lot, listen to the officials talk, listen to the analysts talk, and you could usually put a good amount of information together. On Iran, it's hard to say where we're at. It seems that this ceasefire is crumbling just kind of day by day.
Wait, we still have a ceasefire?
Well, right. They call it, Pasta, remember, we had a ceasefire in Lebanon from 2024 until 2026, where Israel was bombing Lebanon 2 or 3 times a day, right? There's 20 airstrikes in Lebanon a week. And I bring that up because I think that's what Donald Trump's kind of goal had become with the Iran ceasefire. Remember, when the ceasefire was agreed to, the U.S. wasn't blockading Iranian ports. We imposed that after the ceasefire began. We've attacked probably about a dozen, I would say, Iranian tankers right now. The CENTCOM claims they turned around 100, but they've actually attacked about a dozen Iranian ships at this point. And now this past week, they started carrying out attacks and land on Iran, actually bombing Iranian territory. And I think what Donald Trump was trying to do is establish the ceasefire the same way Netanyahu established ceasefires in Lebanon and Gaza, where the ceasefire only applied to Hamas and Hezbollah and not to Israel. And I don't think Iran is going to stand for that. The Iranians do have a little bit of a problem here, where the Iranians were able to make strategic gains in the war against the US by going up the escalation ladder, right? We've seen over the past few years that when Iran engages in tit for tat style exchanges with the US in Israel, it's not a major win for the Iranians. It at best a draw, and maybe Iran actually loses a little bit because they took more damage than the US or Israel did. And with the limited strike, there's no concern about the overall supply of US interceptors and things like this. So my guess is when Iran does finally feel like this is enough, the ceasefire is off, they're going back to full-scale war. And so for the Iranians, they have to decide whether a strike on a couple mine-laying ships and a couple missile launcher sites is worth returning to full-scale war. At some point, that will be the case. We're probably just not there yet. It could come today. It could come next week. I would say next month is probably the longest the ceasefire goes without it falling apart, or Donald Trump making significant enough concessions to actually get a deal done.
So would you say that the ceasefire right now is more about restraint from Iran? Because in the international world, they want to be able to say, look, we held our end of the bargain when it comes to the ceasefire. The Americans did not. And when the ceasefire is lifted, that's just a cue for the Iranians to go back to doing what they're doing. And by the way, aren't we at a point in this war now with the Iranians going back to do what they're doing, meaning making those Gulf states uninhabitable? I mean, because it's like I know that's the leverage that the Iranians have over the United States, is like, hey, you hit our power infrastructure, you hit our desalination plants, we'll just hit those Gulf states, and it's a little bit different over there. We'll survive over here. It will be inhabitable over there. You won't be able to live in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, all these countries if we hit their energy source. I mean, isn't that the ultimate? You know, I remember seeing the whole clip about what Donald Trump holds all the cards. Don't the Iranians really hold a lot of leverage right now over the Americans and the Israelis? Because none of those Gulf states will ever, I mean, maybe they will. Maybe people are that dumb to trust the United States ever again. And I don't even understand how these negotiations can mean anything. Why would we trust Donald? You even said yourself, listening to Donald Trump and listening to the rhetoric and the noise from the West is just, it's just bullshit. The Iranians got to say this. You can't negotiate with this idiot. You're negotiating with the wall. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, what about all these factors that I just talked about right now coming to play for this war? Don't those factor in a lot? I mean, this almost seems like a checkmate situation if the Americans move that pawn out of place.
Yeah, I guess it's important to note here that the U.S. is capable of doing significant destruction in Iran just with our conventional weapon systems. I mean, Donald Trump's threats to blow up their bridges and power plants is a real threat. I don't think Iran could stop it if Trump really wanted to do that. So they could cause immense suffering among the Iranian people. Now, I think your analysis is correct that this will not cause the end of Iranian society, the collapse of the Iranian government, even the collapse of the Iranian military. If Iran retaliates in kind against the Emirates and particularly Bahrain and Kuwait, I think those governments would collapse fairly quickly. And if we don't see regime change, I mean, it may be that Bahrain is uninhabitable after Iran blows up their energy and their water infrastructure, right? People just simply can't fend for themselves in that country anymore. And people leave and go somewhere. Like that is a real possibility outcome of this war. I will say Iran is probably trying to balance a few other things. One is their foreign backers. The Chinese would prefer to see a negotiated settlement to this war, and the Iranians want to be able to tell Beijing that they did everything they could to get there. Beijing is a really important backer of Iran. When Iran is getting like paid now for their oil exports, those are going to banks in China. And those banks don't comply with U.S. sanctions. So Iran is able to get and access that money, but it does give Beijing a certain amount of leverage over Tehran. Additionally, the Iranian people will suffer if we go back to war. And so I think Iran also has to balance off of their population and to realize that if we can't go back to war without trying to negotiate a settlement by all possible means, because if we bomb power plants, we could be talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of Iranians end up dying from a lack of, energy and food and all kinds of other things that Donald Trump is talking about taking out. And one more aspect to this, Pasta, is that Israel and the United States are nuclear weapon states. And so if Iran were to really push it too far, there could be some nuclear consequences for them. So if they could get a deal that works for them, that's certainly the best possible outcome. Still, it just looks less and less likely every day that that's a possibility, and we are going back to war.
How do you view Hezbollah in Lebanon? Do they have the stones to really take on Israel, or are they just limited themselves? And the same way that the United States can do significant damage to Iran, Israel could do significant damage to Lebanon, like the old upper hand that way. How do you view that kind of confrontation going on over there? Because I think a lot of times that's what this is all about. Everybody's paying attention to Iran while Israel keeps on bombing the shit out of southern Lebanon and prepares to take more territory.
Yeah, no, this is really important. And on my show, I've really been trying to highlight and hammer home that even if the U.S. and Iran are able to resolve the Strait of Hormuz issue, the nuclear issue, and are able to end the war, Lebanon remains a major factor. And I think Hezbollah probably made a really, really good strategic decision by sitting and getting bombed by Israel. Again, thousands of times during a ceasefire. Remember, Hezbollah initially ended up in conflict with Israel after the Hamas attacks on October 7th. Now, everybody in the U.S. government will claim this was all about Iran, that this was Iranian-backed Hamas, doing this attack. But that really wasn't the case. Even U.S. intelligence admitted that Hamas did not give Iran a heads up. Iran was caught off guard by the attack.
Yeah.
And so when Hezbollah was initially at war with Israel in 2023 and in 2024, they weren't getting the kind of support and backing that they are now getting for the Iranians, because they were fighting that war on behalf of Hamas. And the relationship between Iran and the Palestinians really shifted during the Syrian civil war, because at least initially, and I say initially, it probably lasted 5 to 8 years, the Palestinian refugees that were living in Syria initially took the side of the Syrian opposition against Bashar al-Assad and against the Iranians. So I think that's probably a significant way to kind of look at the Middle East. And then when Hezbollah chose to break the ceasefire with Israel, again, Israel had violated the ceasefire every day, but they broke it after the U.S. and Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran, thereby really linking the causes of Hezbollah and Iran. And now Hezbollah is in a position where they're able to ask the Iranians to say, to end this war, you need to include Lebanon in the ceasefire, which means pulling Israeli troops out of the country. Israel has declared southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River, is now an Israeli security zone, part of Israeli territory. Yeah. They've told all the residents of really ancient cities and even Christian communities that they have to go. And so Israel is, or Hezbollah, I think, made a very good strategic decision to enter the war at the time they did, to sit and withstand the Israeli ceasefire violations for a year and then join the war at the time that they did, because now they're attached to a much stronger party in the Middle East who is in a position to, at least to some degree, dictate terms. And they are dictating that the terms include Israel ending their occupation and attacks on Lebanon.
How do you view Hezbollah's strength and ability versus Israel's army, whatnot? I mean, a lot of people, that's the part would be, you know, I like when you talked about Iranian-backed Hamas. When they say that in American media, I'm like, can you make that make sense? Isn't Hamas a Sunni group, right? A group mostly predominantly of Sunnis, and Iranians are mostly Shia. So could you explain a little bit of that, and then tell us at what level you think the Hezbollah military is at? Because I think a lot of people think like, okay, that's cool, guerrilla warfare, but they're not going to be able to take on Israel.
Yeah, I guess I would say that I think sometimes, particularly as Americans, we look at this Sunni Shia split as too concrete, that, oh, that guy's a Sunni, that guy's a Shia, they must hate each other. Because Iran has, to some degree supported Hamas and Palestinian groups over the years. But it's not that they're the ultimate backer of Hamas. And again, a lot of this changed during the Syrian civil war when the Palestinians, who are mostly Sunni, took the side of the Sunni opposition to Bashar al-Assad. Not that they necessarily, took up the black banner of al-Qaeda or anything like that, but particularly in the early years of that war, the al-Qaeda guys, the ISIS guys were the most effective of the Sunni opposition to Assad, but there were more moderate groups. Now, eventually they were either beaten or decided that, hey, the Sunni opposition, we rather live under Bashar al-Assad than the Sunni opposition led by Baghdadi or Jolani. Jolani is now in charge. These are real hardcore al-Qaeda guys. And I think that it has a lot to do with the current relationship between Iran and the Palestinians. As far as Hezbollah goes, I think, the power discrepancy to me seems a little bit like the power discrepancy between Russia and Ukraine, where, yeah, Russia has a lot more military power than Ukraine, but through new technologies, particularly drones and missiles, the Ukrainians have been able to fight and hold on a lot longer than people thought that they would, and inflict a lot more damage on Russia than Russia probably anticipated at the start of the war. And we're seeing Hezbollah kind of execute a similar strategy where they're using these small armed drones to really harass and inflict a lot of casualties on the Israeli invading force in their country.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what goes on. My contact in Tehran told me, like, don't sleep on Hezbollah. They got some pop in their game, and from what they're seeing, they're pushing back against the Israelis in South Lebanon. So that's going to be interesting because, like you said, Israel already declared it. By the way, you won't see any of this on TV, guys, because they're not really paying attention to it. They're paying attention to a lot of the other stuff. Let's pivot, Kyle. Let's try to get ourselves a phone call. So, a lot of the things before we start talking about healthcare, because I want to know your libertarian perspective on healthcare, right? Like, obviously, where we align, when I met a lot of my libertarian friends, we were anti-imperialist. I love Ron Paul's mentality when it comes to foreign policy. We were pro-civil liberties, right? I would call myself a leftist libertarian. Pro-civil liberties, pro-freedom of speech. There was a lot of Assange people that were libertarians too as well that were fighting for Julian Assange. So we found this bond. But we disagreed a lot on healthcare and how to get that done and economics and whatnot. But before we dive into that, before I have you put you in a position where you have to defend a losing cause, what the hell's going on with the Libertarian Party? I know you're not really big into the party. You're more of a libertarian by ideology. What the heck is going on in the party right now? I saw this stuff with Jeremy Kauffman. And have you been paying attention to the scuttlebutt in the Libertarian Party, or would you rather not talk about it at all?
It's not that I rather not talk about it. I've just been covering the Iran war, and here's how I look at it. The Libertarian Party has become this massive squabble for the least amount of power imaginable. what the only real benefit I could see to having a libertarian party is the benefit that every couple of years, all of us libertarians from all over the country, we get together at a convention, we debate some things, we share some ideas, but ultimately the real value is in community and networking, right? That, I meet some libertarians that may be really good on foreign policy. Maybe some libertarians, know some Iranians, know some people in the Middle East. Those are contacts that I could generate. Other people, you could find other libertarians in your community and start different networks and things like that. At this point in time, the fighting for power over control of the Libertarian Party, which has almost no power at all, is actively undermining the networking and the community benefits that the party would provide. And so I guess I'm kind of hoping that maybe the Libertarian Party just goes away at this point in time, and somebody like Thomas Massey comes and leads more of a cultural libertarian movement, in the sense that Ron Paul did, right? He didn't need the vehicle of the Libertarian Party to lead a nationwide movement, and it had far more success than anything the Libertarian Party has done. So I'm more looking at that model going forward. I try to ignore most of the noise and chaos because, again, a lot of these people just they're unhappy, and they go to the Libertarian Party. They're unhappy in their life. They go to the Libertarian Party event and they just kind of take it out on everybody else around them because they think it's the one time a year they get to flex some influence and authority, and it's really just pathetic and very depressing.
It's funny because I would think it's the opposite way. In other words, it's like you're there and it's like, there's no power. Let's lead a cultural kind of libertarian movement, and meet and network and stuff. Where it's the opposite, I think. It's like, well, if you really want to get power, if somebody comes in, because you got these small tribes now, like, squabbling over, like you said, the little amount of power, right? There's been an issue with the New Hampshire Libertarian Party and Jeremy Kauffman. And, he's put so much stupid tweets out there for over the years that are just so fucking awful that I can understand how the main party, right, or bits of the party itself would be like, we need to distance ourselves from these people somehow. However, it's the Libertarian Party, and freedom of speech should be the number one. Like, your First Amendment should shine free. So, when I would talk to Angela about the issues, I'm like, can't you do something about this? She's like, nope, can't. Right? Because part of her principles, freedom of speech, if you're not inciting violence, let it go. But now we see somebody come in and they're trying to silence or distance themselves from an aspect of the party that they feel makes them look bad nationally. And it does. That guy is such an idiot. He said some stupid shit over the fucking years. His whole thing is, it's run by leftists. Like, one of his arguments against me, and Dave Smith did the same thing when it came to Nick Cruz from Revolutionary. This guy over here wants a national healthcare system run by the government. And it's like, how is that a fucking diss? Yeah, there might be problems with that. But if you guys don't see, and this is what a lot of people think, they think that libertarians are very narcissistic, selfish people who just want to be able to work within government without it being, controlled by the oligarchs, whatnot. And they want to go ahead and maneuver their way through life and the banking system. Whereas if leftists or people from the socialist movement, right? Like, I don't necessarily consider myself a socialist, but I do believe in collectivism. Right, I do believe that we are one species on one planet. We're going to have to play nicely in the sandbox together. So why can't we have a healthcare system that works for all our citizens? I know taxation is theft, libertarians, and we should eliminate it as much as we can. But if we are collecting this tax dollars, why is it being used on war? Why can't it be used here at home to build things, to fix things, to make things that benefit us as a society, right? Like, that's my mentality. Now, there might be an issue with that at its core because, you give too much power to one entity. Too much centralized power is bad, right? Central planning doesn't work in a lot of people's minds. I see China building high-speed railroad. I think it could work. So I understand that at its principles, right, at its core, that might be wrong. But why am I being dissed for wanting to see my fellow citizens get things that instead of being spent on war, could be spent on us. Why do I get dissed by the libertarians and the Kaufmans? Because I asked Jeremy Kaufman if there's a place for a leftist libertarian in that party, and his answer was pretty much no. There's no place for us there. And yet, you said, okay, the Libertarian Party, it's good for meeting up with people. No, there's an infrastructure there, Kyle. There's an infrastructure there that if Judge Knapp were to be convinced to run for president with Thomas Massey as his vice president, can use that vehicle of the Libertarian Party and get ballot access. That is there. That's what I saw in the Green Party, except I thought it harder to. I thought the Green Party ideology, because of their
wait, can I ask
I'm
you
going to let you
one
jump
question
in right now.
Okay,
Yeah. But
I just want to
I saw
ask
the
you.
Green Party is having problems. I saw the Libertarian Party as a leftist as the best way forward. Yet, when I got involved with that party, complete fuck ups. But please jump in. I know I've said a lot. It's the morning show, guys. 561-247-2721. If you want to yell at Kyle the way I just yelled at him for his libertarian views, go ahead and do so, guys.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot I want to touch on there, but the first one I want to get in, and this is why I think the power of the Libertarian Party is very, very marginal. I think that if Thomas Massey and Judge Napolitano were on a ticket under the Libertarian Party, the Libertarian Party would spend tens of millions of dollars in the next election cycle fighting lawsuits in every single state, being sued by both the Democrats and the Republicans to try to get them off the ballot. The reason that we have ballot access in so many states, and it costs millions of dollars every single year to maintain it, with the lawsuits we already deal with, is because we're marginal, because we're irrelevant, because we're not going to win an election, because we're not going to be a threat, because in almost any election, the number of votes that the Libertarian Party gets is less than the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. And so it's not as even if
because you're running shit
you
candidates.
take the Libertarians off the bat. No, but yeah, we do. And that's why we're able to stay on the ballot. If we ran good candidates, they would take it from us, right? If you think if they gave like Dave Smith and they told Dave Smith, you could post whatever you want on the Libertarian Party ad handle, they would just ban the thing. And there's nothing we could do to get it back. Right there's no way that we could we don't
that's a
have
black pill defeatist
real power.
attitude. I think that's a black pill defeatist attitude.
No, it's not, because if we're not dumping all that money into the Libertarian Party, if we're not wasting all our effort, if we're not dividing ourselves over the Libertarian Party, there's room for a real cultural movement. More money could go into all these podcasts and libertarian institutions that actually do real work, that actually expose real corruption. That, Dave DeCamp at antiwar.com is literally the only person in the United States of America that's documenting that the U.S. has been bombing Somalia 2 times a week since Donald Trump came back into office, right?
Yeah.
With more attention and influence on that particular part of our movement, I think we can make a real difference in the United States politics and really start to either shift the Overton window or maybe even get candidates elected through the Democratic and Republican parties on a libertarian message and platform. I think that is definitely the pathway forward. I want to recreate the Ron Paul movement, which in my lifetime was the absolute peak of libertarian influence and discussion in this country. And so, and look, I think we're on the right track. If you look, Scott Horton, Dave Smith are, guests on the Joe Rogan show. They're always on Piers Morgan. Judge Napolitano, one of the biggest YouTube shows out there, is interviewing Mearsheimer and Satz and Matt Ho, Mate, Bloom, all these greats, right? Every single day. And so I really think the country is primed to receive the libertarian message. The problem is coming through this very dysfunctional organism, the Libertarian Party, and a far better route for us is to abandon that route that has shown to net us nothing, that only creates division and conflict and costs us money, and seek a different cultural route. I really do believe that politics is downstream of culture. and we got to influence the culture, and that's done through podcasts and different institutes, books, and things like that. Not just saying that people should donate to places I work like the Libertarian Institute, but I guarantee you that every dollar the Libertarian Institute gets does 10 times more work towards advancing liberty than the Libertarian Party.
So the attitude is because they're going to be lawsuits and we're going to get sued and we're going to get tied up. Don't advance the party, just advance the message instead. In other words, don't put out a viable candidate that's going to make too much noise. Because you even said when we have these populist people that ran, like let's say Dave Smith ran last time with Spike Cohen or whatever the case may be, or Spike and Maj, and you have these populist candidates. Let's concentrate more on Dave. Let's let Dave ran, right? Since he's well known. The funding mechanism that now you're going to raise so many, your membership should shoot through the roof. The funding should shoot through the roof. You can actually put dollars into the pockets of the Libertarian Party like never before, right? When's the last time they ran a candidate that was, Ron Paul was the last real candidate I think they ran in quite some time. I mean, I don't want to diss anybody else, but they didn't have the popularity that guy had. And he had it after his presidential run, right? Had he run again, instead of under the Republican Party, he ran under the Libertarian Party, wouldn't that mean membership increased, funds increased? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
to what end?
Yeah.
Are we going to have a Libertarian president ever? No. There will never be a president or a member of Congress who is elected running as a member of the Libertarian Party. It's just not going to happen. I mean, I would love it, right? Like this, Pasta, this isn't me coming to you as like a Libertarian defeatist. This is me as a Libertarian who's tried to work in the Libertarian Party. Right. Ron Paul's run in the Libertarian Party was actually before I was born. It was his 2 runs in 08 and 12 that made me a Libertarian when he was running for a Republican. And that's most Libertarians I know were convinced to become Libertarians by Ron Paul running and as a Republican congressman. So, I don't want this to sound defeatist. I really think there's a path forward for libertarians to gain a lot of influence in this country. It's just not through the vehicle of the Libertarian Party. Now, and this is, in our moment too. If things in the United States of America really change over the next couple of decades, maybe it would be worth it to relaunch the Libertarian Party at some point in time in the future. But right now, it's just sucking up money and doing absolutely nothing.
Kyle Anzalone talking about the Libertarian Party. If you guys want to call in, 561-247-2721. That is 561-247-21. Guys, we can't test out the phone lines until you pick them up and call in. Fred Edwards did his job. You do yours now. Share this out there, guys. Let people know there's a call-in show every morning, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I should have set up more callers yesterday and told people to call in, some of my friends. I didn't do so yesterday because I was messing around. How about those New York Knicks? All right, so Kyle, it's hard for me to argue with that. I understand where you're coming from. It does make sense. The libertarian message seems more important than the Libertarian Party at this time, because the Libertarian Party seems like it will just take on too much flack, too much of a distraction, suck up, use the resources and money elsewhere if it gets too big. So it's kind of better to be like guerrilla style, hide in the bushes and fund the libertarian podcasters, message people, and all that stuff. Use that there. Let's talk about something that will make people go away from libertarian ideology. Healthcare. If the Libertarian Party were a thing and was running a president, what message?
We have a call.
Oh, we do have a call. Caller, where you calling from? Who are you? Let us know.
Hey, this is Keaton Weiss from the Do Dissident Show. Testing out.
Oh my God, dude! Somebody was just saying in the chat, Pasta should be on Due Dissidence, and I was like, "Fuck Keaton! He hadn't returned my last phone call, but here he is doing it on the air." What's up, buddy?
Keaton had me on Due Dissidence.
I'm sorry if I missed your call. That was an accident. I apologize for that. Call me back. Just keep bothering me. You got to keep bothering me.
Well, we're doing it right here. We got a phone call, so
yeah, we're doing it right here.
You know what's
Doing
fun
right
about
here.
this right now? We got Pasta Jardula, Keaton Weiss, and Kyle Anzalone. Right now, you could have a cook-off show, and it would be up for grabs. Right now, if you have three guys, Top Chef style, going at each other, I think I would be the favorite,
Oh,
the
Kyle
betting
can cook.
favorite, right? But
You'd be the
but,
favorite. Well, you're a restaurateur. You know, you got secret advantages like, you know, cornstarch. You know, you put that cornstarch on the pasta, makes it taste better. I never cooked with cornstarch because I never cooked in a restaurant.
oh,
That's the
I didn't do
secret, right?
much
That's the
cooking.
secret to restaurant pasta, right? That's the secret to restaurant pasta, right? You put the cornstarch on it so the sauce kind of sticks to it and it tastes better, and it
Well,
gives
I don't
people
use cornstarch. What I do
colorectal
is I
cancer
do
when they're 48.
I do butter, right? Like I use butter in a pan. Basically, the thing
Butter,
is,
huh?
you
Well, butter
got
I
to save
use.
the pasta water because that's the starchiness you get. I don't
Well,
use
yeah,
direct
obviously,
cornstarch, and you
sure.
got to use butter. You got to coat the pasta and cook the sauce into the pasta. But you know what? What really convinced me that I know you
Okay.
know how to cook? Just watching you in the pan. You were making the Sicilian recipe with the raisins in it and the olives. I think it was like a
Oh yeah,
chicken. And
raisins
I
and
saw
olives.
the
Yeah,
way
you
you
like
used
that.
that spoon in that pan, and I'm like, that dude knows how to cook, right? You could tell, Kyle, that a guy knows how to cook just by the way he moves around that chicken and that sauce in that pan.
Yeah, you like the raisins and the olives, right? It's good, good, creates a world of flavor, world of flavor. I know pasta water and I know butter, but I never tried starch. You know,
Yeah.
apparently you haven't either, so that's good. It's got to be
No.
healthier for you without it.
When I'm eating the carbs itself, I'm already doing something wrong. What do you got for Kyle? Because I was just about to bash him on healthcare, and I was about to let him start going on healthcare because I'm one of those guys. I consider myself a leftist libertarian, even though I've never been in the party. But I do believe in universal healthcare. I believe healthcare should be a human right, and even the system we have now, even I'm very cautious after COVID. I don't want a sick care system. I don't want a controlled system. But I believe even with the system we have right now, it's better for the most vulnerable out there to get some form of health care than nothing. I don't know what he's going to tell me, Keaton, but if you got something you want to throw at him, please do so. And thanks for calling on in.
Well, absolutely, man. Yeah, no, it's great to talk to you, and Kyle too. How's it going, man? Yeah, I would say, you know, well, first of all, on that issue, I would just say, you know, generally, you know, I think as a principle, you know, you involve the state in matters where the thing in question is, you know, too big, too important, and too expensive to be left to the private sector. In other words, if we had all privatized roads, like the road system, that's too big and too important and too expensive to just put it entirely in private hands. Then what, you got to pay $8 to go from, you know, Boston to Rhode Island, and then you got to pay $12 to another company to go from Rhode Island to Hartford, Connecticut. Like, it's just not workable. And I think healthcare has reached a point where it just doesn't make sense to leave it in private hands. So that would be my kind of philosophical argument to a libertarian for universal healthcare.
Kyle, do you want to respond on that? Because I know you were kind of like, yeah, what do you mean we can't have the private? What's the word that Chase Oliver was using? Free market forces. Please tell us about the free market forces, libertarian.
Yeah, I think libertarians have to be very practical when we talk about this issue. And most libertarians aren't. They just say, oh, we need a free market in healthcare, and that will fix the problem. And for most people, they look at the current healthcare market and think it's a free market system. And it's absolutely not. We have the worst possible, the least defensible system now, where you have somewhat what they call private companies who get to write the laws, who are able to privatize all their profits while they get welfare from the government if they ever take any losses. The drug approval process and all of that is so controlled by the private companies that run the healthcare system that the mixed market is a massive problem. And people who look and say, oh, a government run system would be better, in some respects, there probably are definitely elements of that would be better. My main concern about having a government run system is look at what happened during COVID, right? Like, governments were saying you can't have, we're not going to approve your transplant if you don't take the COVID shot. And so there's going to be all kinds of things like this that pop up over time where the government's going to say, if you don't do this, you don't get your health care. Right. And it probably will end up being political, right? If somebody is posting things they shouldn't online, well, then you're going to lose the rights that the government gives you. And one of those rights could be your health care. I mean, this country is really moving in that direction already. And so for that reason, I don't think we can have government run healthcare. What you need is a true private free market system where companies actually have to perform. They actually have to offer good services. The prices actually have to be competitive. People have to know what the hell the prices of their healthcare actually are, because they never do. But there's constant government involvement in welfare and handouts. Now, one more thing I would say, if you made me king of America for even the next 4 years, you gave me a full term as a president, I probably wouldn't cut Medicare or Medicaid in that time. The U.S. government is an absolute behemoth, right? There's so many things that need to be cut. The military industrial complex and the corporate welfare have to be at the very top of that list and have to be cut first. At that point, hopefully our economy starts running and functioning better, and then we could start to deregulate the healthcare system and really focus the deregulations on stripping away the regulations that the healthcare companies put in place to block out any competition for them. All the way that the patents on these drugs work, that if a company develops a drug and then they could prove that they spend enough money on it, they could extend the patent, and then the drug costs more for another 10. Like, we got to get rid of that stuff first. And then after all that is gone, then we could look at scaling back in. And I also wouldn't say, if somebody is on Medicare or Medicaid, I think Medicare is the long-term one for seniors, right? I wouldn't take that away. If you're 80 years old, you're on Medicare, you get that for the rest of your life. We can't take that away from somebody at that age. Just, I have relatives that are at that age. I don't know if cognitively, they could handle all the transitions that would need to happen as far as getting new healthcare. So we have to be practical and realize the current situation, the status quo, but start really chipping away at the worst parts of the healthcare system that are ultimately, I think, causing us to be in such massive costs with not that great of outcomes.
I think a lot of that makes sense. I definitely share your concern about, giving too much control to the government. I would say that, not all universal healthcare systems are literally government-run healthcare systems. Like in Britain, the NHS pays out private doctors. And so you still have private practice. Now, the government having the power of the purse gives it a lot of power, and that is, of course, a concern. I would grant you that all day, every day. That's why, I do respect much of where libertarians come from philosophically, just on that sort of macro level. And I think Pasta probably does too. But the one thing you said there that I would definitely challenge, and this is, I think, a sort of pillar of libertarian orthodoxy and free market orthodoxy, that I think people get confused a lot. When you said, if we privatize healthcare, it'll unleash the power of the free market, and people who offer the best product at the best price will prevail.
Competition will keep everybody in line.
Right.
Sorry.
But that's not really true.
Exactly.
I'm going to give you an analogy that's kind of an extreme one, but sometimes the most extreme ones are the ones that illustrate the point in the clearest way. So if you go to a baseball game and you go to buy a beer at a baseball game, it probably nowadays, I haven't been to a game in a while, but it's probably $15 to $20 for a 16-ounce can of Bud Light or whatever. I mean, a Yankee Stadium was $15 last time I went, so let's just use that as an example. Okay, now that's an obscene price for a beer. Now, if they wanted to sell more beers to more people, they would cut that price in half, and they'd probably double the amount of beers they sell to twice the amount of people. In other words, you got 50,000 people go to a game. Let's say, as it is now, you sell 5,000 beers a game. to 5,000 different people. Well, if you cut the price of that beer in half, you'd probably sell 10,000 beers a game to 10,000 different people. Just once again, using big round numbers. But the team has decided that it's more profitable to sell fewer beers at the game and mark them up to an obscene price. In other words, they make more profit selling fewer products to fewer people. Now, that incentive is fair enough if the product and or service in question is beers at a baseball game. But that dynamic is deadly and toxic when the product or service in question is medicine and healthcare. So the idea that you would price something competitively so that the most amount of people can access it is not necessarily true in a free market. The goal in a free market is to maximize your profit, not to maximize the number of products sold to the maximum number of people. But this goes back to my original point. Whereas if the service is as vital as healthcare, the goal must not be to maximize the number of dollars you make selling healthcare. The incentive must be to get as much healthcare to as many people who need it as you possibly can. And that incentive does not necessarily jive with the incentives of the free market. In fact, very often, those objectives are in conflict.
So
I mean, you make some fair points there, Keen. I would just add a couple of things. I think one is the liability protections that some healthcare providers get and things like that adds to
Yep, I would agree with
the
that.
kind of nefarious thing. And I will say, as a libertarian, I do not in any way present libertarianism as being a utopian, that if we do this, every single person is going to get healthcare. I also spent like my first 3 years out of college, I worked in community mental health. So with like the poorest, most mentally ill people, I certainly understand that some people, even in the current system, fall through the cracks, and there's really nothing you could do to help everyone because some people just either don't want or can't help themselves, right? And you know, there's you could force people to take medication, but there's also a real ethical and moral issue with that. So you know, there's a lot to balance on here. And just to go back to your baseball game example, one other aspect of beers costing $15 at a baseball game is you probably end up with a lot less insanely drunk people at the end of the game. And so, you know, pricing does help to counteract abuse. And in the medical field, you know, there's a lot of people, a lot of men
You're
who
trying to police people's buzz at a baseball.
That wasn't.
But hang on a second. Hold on. Wait 1 second. I use that example because it's more extreme in terms of pricing. You could take a more benign product like orange juice and make the same exact point. Why does a bottle of Tropicana cost $6 when they would sell more juice if they made it $4? Because the markup is better at $6, and even if they sell fewer bottles of juice, they make more money. So I just use the beer at a game example because it's the most outrageous because the numbers are highest. So I use big round numbers to make a point, but you could apply that across the board.
Right. My overall point was just that it does limit abuse because there are a lot of people, a lot of healthcare services are used up by a very small number of people. And a lot of people are just constantly going to the ER when they really don't need to be. And so pricing is important to make sure that you don't have all of your resources being consumed by people who really don't need the services you're asking for. So that's another aspect of this as well, that you got to figure in here. And that's why when you go to Canada and the UK, people complain about having really long wait times for something as simple as getting an MRI or, you know, getting some basic procedural work done, testing work done. So I think that's why a pricing model is important, to make sure that, you know, people who need services are getting them, and they have to pay a little bit. So they're not just like, you know, very anxious about their health and constantly going and trying to get services to like reassure themselves that they don't have something wrong or are seeking medication, which again is another major problem in our current system.
Oh yeah, look, I would agree with that. Look, I know people in Canada who live in Canada who say that even if it's not a routine procedure, even if they're having an urgent problem and they go to the ER, it can be so crowded in there that even if it looks like you're having a heart attack, they'll tell you like, hey, we'll get to you when we get to you. Like that, I've heard those stories from people. So, you know, I mean, I'm not a utopian thinker either, but I do think when it comes to something like healthcare, just for the moral hazard alone, aside from all of these other points, I think, the dynamic in a society where people die because they cannot afford medicine is barbaric. And not only do they die, but they lose their, I mean, you get cancer when you're old, you very often lose your house. My friend of mine had Lyme disease as a kid. His father was a railroad worker, union worker with great union benefits. I mean, the Metro North Railroad is famous far and wide for the great benefits that it gives its workers. The insurance wouldn't cover as much as he needed. He had to sell his house and basically, give up his whole life's earnings to treat his kid's Lyme disease. I think obviously no system is a utopia, but I think you have to err on that side of things when it comes to something
Let
like
me jump in
healthcare.
here.
At the risk of, go ahead, Pasta. But what? I actually called in to talk more about the Libertarian Party versus the Republican Democrat Party. So I'd like to get into that for a couple minutes while you have.
We will get into that. Yeah, we will. But I knew you were the type of guy to talk about these things when it comes to healthcare because it's really important as leftist, whatever. I mean, I still consider myself a leftist, not a Democrat. I don't know where you stand on that, Keaton. I don't want to burden you with any titles and stuff, but I knew you would.
I'm probably a leftist libertarian at this point for reasons we've been talking about. Like, I am very skeptical of centralized power. I share that with libertarians, and I respect them for that.
So, and I do too. But the thing is that at the end of the day, like I say this, we're one species on one planet, and the one thing that a lot of libertarians would make fun of a lot of socialists or whatever or communists and say, you guys with your utopias, you guys want this kind of utopia too as well. The mentality that if you have this anarchist kind of like energy or an anarchist kind of ideology, that things will work itself out if we remove the corruption from the situation, which is always the central government or the communist government, that things will work itself out. That makes no sense to me in one sense or another. Even if you didn't have regulations and you let the free market work itself out, there are still rules involved. So why not have rules in a system where it's supposed to take place in a courtroom? We, the people, whatever, we're supposed to have the mechanisms to be able to decide things or fight things. Like you've constantly stated too, and this is a problem, Kyle, that you can't get this healthcare unless you do that. Well, those are the parts of the system that we can remove. And we can say, listen, fuck you. You can't say that you have to have this type of sick care. What you have to say, we the people say, is that you're going to give an allotted amount of money to Keaton Weiss or this other person or that other person, and they can choose the health care they want, and we can have a system like that. That seems more like fixing the system rather than just blowing it up altogether. In other words, there's going to be rules, and I don't understand why libertarians think that rules will work itself out better in a corporate boardroom rather than in a courtroom. Please make that last comment on that. Let's get into Keaton's questions or thoughts about the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it sounds kind of utopian to me, Pasta, that you would have more control over this government policy than any citizen has ever had over any government policy ever. We don't get to dictate anything to our government. They dictate everything to us. I think we have a lot more control, at least with like when Cracker Barrel changed their logo, we were able to get it changed back. You think if the U.S. government changed like the way the American flag looked and we all protested against it, they would change it back? Hell no. So again,
we're too divided right now. We're too divided. Right, if we do have the ability, if we came together to really enact real change, if we got our heads out of our ass.
And that was going to be the last point that I made, that libertarianism does rely on a strong sense of community where, when Ron Paul talks about having a free market healthcare system, he's going back to the days where he worked in a Catholic hospital and they didn't turn people away. If somebody showed up, they came, they sent them a bill, but if they didn't pay it, they didn't pay it, right? That was just the way that it worked. And I would really love to live in a country that worked like that. America today certainly doesn't. And so, that's one of the reasons why I said you can't just throw people off the government healthcare system because there isn't that community backstop in this country anymore. And And I think a part of that is because politics has everybody in this country so divided, because we had this massive centralized government that has so much power, and everybody just wants to put their finger on the one ring. The only other thing I want to say is I am a libertarian foreign policy guy. I spend my entire day reading articles about foreign policy. And so there are definitely libertarians out there that would be able to probably give you guys a little bit, more detailed, better analogies and things like that on this subject.
We're not looking for the experts. We're looking for the overall regular guy mentality on the healthcare system of the Libertarian Party. And by the way,
I probably follow it less than the regular guy, just because I spend so much time reading about foreign policy.
I know, but you gave us a good answer. I understand where you're coming from, and you know what I'm saying. Like I didn't know Keaton was going to join me here to team up on you. That's pretty fun that he's doing that. And by the way, I wish that you would have gotten a lot of this message out when you said something that's very important. This is what I talked about. When it comes to Javier Milei in Argentina, and seeing there wasn't a ton of people kind of praising him at the Libertarian Convention 2 years ago. There was a few, though, but a lot of them have caught on to the bullshit. You can't just kind of yank the rug out from a socialist society when so many people depend on the programs of the state and just pull it out and go to this. We're going to eliminate this, eliminate that. You're going to leave too many people starving and hungry. And that's what's going on right now in Argentina, where they've pulled the rug out, and a lot of libertarians think that is good when it's not. There were too many people dependent on the services. You'd have to slowly transition that out. And that's not what's happened in Argentina. Plus, he sold out the country to the Zionist and BlackRock, as well as State Street and whatnot. Please, Keaton, get into it. Let's ask some questions while we got Kyle here. Let's beat up on some more guys. If you want to call in, 561-247-21, 561-247-2721. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, sure. Actually, the point of my call was not to team up on Kyle with the healthcare issue. It was actually to be kind of conciliatory between you two as it pertains to the argument you guys were having about Libertarian Party organizing versus running as sort of a cultural libertarian inside the Democrat or Republican Party. I just wanted to introduce the idea. Our friend Jose Vega is running for Congress now, and he's doing both. He is running on the Democratic primary line for June. And then should he lose the Democratic primary, he's already secured ballot access as an independent for the fall. Now, that is not possible in every state. Some states have like saw loser laws on the books where you would have to run as a write-in if you lose one party's nomination. But that kind of multi-pronged approach may be useful, because I do think that Kyle is correct when he says, like, look, there's just not the infrastructure or the organizing capacity to get a Libertarian Party candidate over the line and into the White House anytime soon. And the same goes for the Greens on the left. Like, I think that's just like true at this point, whether we want to admit it or not. At the same time, Pasta, to your point, it's also very, very hard to run as a disruptor within one of these two major parties. And to me, there is no more crystal clear example of that than what just happened to Thomas Massie. I mean, Thomas Massie was an overwhelmingly popular congressperson in his district. And because he crossed Daddy Trump, they were able to push him out, because so many people who vote in major party primaries are just diehard partisans who will actually sell out their principles to the leader of the party in a heartbeat. And so you kind of have a couple of paths there with real obstacles thrown throughout them. And I think perhaps the best approach is to do both where it is possible. Because, like, look, like, I do think, as much as, our first topic was more economic in nature, both of these major parties and the interests who own them are just so determined never to implement something like universal health care. So realistically, in the short term, what is the thing most in need of protection right now? I would say it is civil liberties, far and away. And a guy like Massie, for whatever economic disagreements I may have with him, he's pretty damn solid on those issues. And so there needs to be space for guys like that in the system, and you have to carve that space out however you can, wherever you can.
Would you agree to that, by the way, Kyle? I know you would, because I do. That the thing that's most under attack right now is our civil liberties, and that what needs to be protected more than anything. Keaton, thank you. You're showing your leftist libertarian side as well, because I would make jokes about this for years. Fiorella would say, I don't know if y'all know that out there, but Pasta's a civil liberties guy, and we would go into a segment talking about how our civil liberties are under attack. And I told a friend of mine, his daughter, who's going into college, that instead of being a civil rights lawyer, she should be a civil liberties lawyer. Now, that didn't play well in a black family. They were kind of mad at me, but I still tried to make that argument. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Keaton said there. And I actually got a question for you, Keaton. And I really want your perspective on this, because as a libertarian, maybe I'm too in the weeds. I'm too emotionally invested in Thomas Massie. But my interpretation wasn't that Massie lost his primary for crossing Trump. He had crossed Trump before and still won primaries. He lost that primary because 3 billionaires whose top concern was the state of Israel got involved in that race, and that was the real problem there. It wasn't necessarily the influence of Donald Trump.
You want Keaton's opinion or mine? Because I'm going to throw after Keaton's done, I'm going to throw my opinion in the ring there.
Okay.
Go ahead, Keaton.
Okay. I mean, first of all, I'll just say it's difficult to tell where Trumpism ends and Zionism begins. Like there's a lot of overlap there. So unless we see like hard data polling these voters on what issues mattered most to them, unless and until we see that, it's kind of hard to pin down the exact answer to that question. However, I do think it is safe to assume that a majority of Kentuckians were not pissed off at Thomas Massie for pushing to release the Epstein files. Like, you look at overwhelming polls from both major parties, Massie was right on the issues in the minds of an overwhelming majority of voters. And so in terms of like, the AIPAC stuff and the lobbyist stuff, I mean, why did those billionaires go hard at Thomas Massie? It's because he crossed Israel and he crossed the Epstein class, which is essentially the same thing as saying he crossed Donald Trump, because the overlap between those two things is so large that it's really tough to pin it down any more specifically than that, at least for now. I mean, maybe we'll see some numbers that'll point in one direction or the other. But for now, it seems like you could pretty safely say, yeah, he crossed Trump by crossing Israel, and that's what cost him his seat, and that's what brought in all that big money to crush him. But one thing we know is that Ed Gulrine is not particularly popular. And so people basically followed orders, whether it was billionaire orders, advertising, or Trump. People just basically walked like sheep into a voting booth and voted for who they were told to vote for. And that is a problem within the duopoly.
Okay. Well, that's what they want you to believe, right? Because people didn't walk into that booth and voted for that person, because you can see that, there's certain numbers you can look at. And I've been talking about this for quite some time. That's the nefariousness of these elections. They make you believe like, oh my God, did I get this wrong? Am I really anti-Semitic over here? These people voted to support the opposition to Thomas Massie because he was anti-Semitic. Was he really being anti-Semitic? If you look at the players involved, and let me say this much too as well, because too many people say, oh, it's Israel at the end of the day. It's the Zionists at the end of the day, as if they're the only one behind the curtain. That's not true. This is a war is a racket. Smedley Butler, the industry that's involved. It's more than just Zionism, right? It costs $7. The state has to pay $7 when a sailor cracks a Coke in Iraq. Right? There's this whole Pepsi Cola, Levi Jeans, who makes all the jeans for the sailors and whatnot. There's all these industries that make so much money that I think a lot of those corporations are happy that a lot of people point the finger at Israel, because it almost makes it look as America's being a victim. Oh, they're controlled by AIPAC. They're calling all the shots. And at the end of the day, if we do the Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes mentality, and we eliminate the Zionist entity that's controlling America, we can get back to being freedom-loving countries that we are, and we'll be okay. So let's just get rid of that entity. No, there are culprits, there are accomplices. This is about the technocrats. Who has more power and money? Bibi Netanyahu or Peter Thiel, who they've got all these track and trace systems in play now, right? So I think it goes beyond. You must go higher, my son, than just Israel. When you look at the entities that controlled that election once again, the election system, there's zero transparency. You can't tell me that there was enough votes. You saw the votes that were counted against Thomas Massie. You have to take the word of the state that got the word of a private equity company, right, with proprietary software. We can't see how the mechanism, how they're being counted. And there's 1,000 ways to steal an election in America. I believe it was a death by 1,000 cuts. They planted some mail-in ballots that helped the opposition. They flipped some of the software, some of the votes with the vote flipping mechanism. They found other ways to get other ballots into the machines by clustering because there's no chain of custody. You can't see it. If you look at the players involved, the company that ran the election in the 3rd Congressional District in Kentucky was a company named Hart Intercivic. It's one of the big 4 companies. Hart Intercivic is owned by HIG, right? It's a capital investment firm, which is private equity in a publicly funded election. We don't even know the private players that are controlling the company that have stakes in our elections. Right. But by the way, HIG was started by Sam Khan. Who is Sam Khan? He's a director at Blackstone. Sam Khan also had a hand to play in the ballot making company that provided all the ballots in the 4th Congressional District. So it's more than just the Zionist entity. It's all these 1%ers in these global corporations, Blackstone, BlackRock. They're the controlling interest in our elections, and we don't even see what's going on. And whatever number they give us, we have to take. So I think it was more than just Zionism. I think it was the whole mechanism involved. And now that Donald Trump is being a good boy and playing with all these corporations right now, remember when he went to China, he brought everybody with him, right? All the CEOs of all these companies, everybody's involved. The 1% is involved. The 4th Industrial Revolution people, right? The Great Reset folks, the people who want to commodify every part of Mother Nature involved. It's not just the Zionists. They are controlling our elections, and whatever number they give us, we have to take it and be told. The most convincing number where you know this is full of shit is that in the last election, Thomas Massie's opponent, right, got a certain amount of vote. Well, that number has increased almost 400%. That's not mathematically impossible. It is mathematically improbable. It makes you think that there's something wrong, but we don't have the power, the audit power to look at these elections. We just have to take the numbers and be told what's what. And they do this on the left as well as the right. They do it on the Democrat side as well as the Republican side. It's not Democrat and Republicans who are cheating. It's the establishment versus the rest of us. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
No, that's a really important point, Pasta, because, you know, most Americans don't even pay attention. I mean, Massey's primary was the difference. It got national attention because so much money got dumped into it. But most Americans don't pay attention to the primary races. And so by the time they actually do pay attention to the congressional races versus the Democrat and Republicans, you're getting an establishment pro-Zionist candidate either way. I will never forget in 2022, I woke up one morning, got on Eds, and on the APAC Eds feed, they're actually bragging about how they dumped $500,000 into a Democratic congressional primary. I think it was Illinois 7. And it was actually a girl that I knew. We took Heritage 101 together. She's been a commie since Professor Garrett convinced her that communism was the right way to go in Heritage 101. And she was set to win Danny Davis's Congress seat. She was going to take it from him. And they dumped in $500,000, sent letters to all of her neighbors saying that, you know, she didn't like the Jews and all this other nonsense. And they stole it from her. And so, yeah, it's crazy. And it's, again, not just the Israel lobby, but the Israel lobby has a lot of political institutions and networks and things to funnel the money and make this happen. Although I do think you're right that the military industrial complex, the banking, the financial sectors are probably very happy that AIPAC and Israel, the Israel lobby, are getting so much attention right now because it's really took down the temperature on them a little bit.
Yeah. Keaton, anything last?
All right, gentlemen, I got to No, I think I could leave it there. I do have to run because I got some work I gotta get to. But hey, this was fun. I'm glad the phones are working. Congratulations on this. And yeah, if you're in the chat, don't be shy about picking up the phone. Pick up the phone. It's fun.
When's your next
Thanks,
show,
Keaton.
To 2.5 hours.
Guys, check it out.
Going on at noon today.
Yeah, we have one of our supporters here says he saw you on the Jimmy Dore show when I had you and Russ on, and he hasn't missed a show in 3 years since he saw that show. So that's kind of awesome when you hear those stories. I'm very proud and happy for your success. You guys deserve it. You guys do amazing work over there. Have you had Kyle on? Kyle, have you been on?
Yes, I
I've had
have.
Kyle on a few times, yeah.
Beautiful.
Which
beautiful.
my favorite part of this conversation is knowing I was on Due Dissidence before Pasta.
Shit.
No, Pasta was on. Pasta's been on. Pasta's
Okay.
been on, just not in a little while. But no, we've had Pasta on a couple times. Yeah, sorry I missed your call. If I miss your call, just keep bothering me.
No, nobody knew these guys back in the days, and I was on that debate about RFK, but way before October 7th and stuff. So it was a fun show when I was on.
Times since then too.
Yeah. Love you, Keaton. Go do your
All
thing,
right,
Bubba.
Thanks, Keaton.
All right, you too, man. Thanks, everybody.
Later, guys. Man, Keaton Weiss, ladies and gentlemen, Due Dissidence in the motherfucking house. Guys, this is Drive Time in the Mornings. I'm here with Kyle Anzalone. He'll be our Thursday guest if we don't beat him up too much and he comes back. I'm sure he's got thick skin. He's an Italian. I wore my Tony Soprano shirt for you today. You see this here? I'm having Kyle Anzalone on. I'm gonna look like Tony Soprano.
All right, we got another caller.
We got another caller. Where are you calling from? Who is it? Where are you calling from?
Miguel Santiago calling from Boca Raton.
How long were you in the queue for?
Queue is empty.
Queue was empty. Okay. We're trying to test this queue. This whole week is all about testing out the equipment and the software more than anything. We haven't even got a successful for test because you knuckleheads aren't calling. Call now and tell us how long you wait in the queue. What do you got for us, Miguel Santiago? What do you want to talk about today? I know you like the Michael Jackson movie. I don't know if Kyle saw it yet, but Kyle, are you a musician guy? Do you like Michael Jackson?
I haven't seen the movie. I haven't followed Michael Jackson a whole lot.
I guess that's a no.
Morning, Pasta. Morning, Kyle. Yeah, I've been a Michael Jackson was the first artist I ever even acknowledged, or ever remember hearing since I was like 3 years old. And, like I said on earlier, the Jackson 5 is the soundtrack to my childhood. So I'm very biased in this, in my love for the new film, but what I wanted to say, I wanted to underscore a comment that Pasta just made where he said, it's not, he contrasted himself with Nick Fuentes and Candace. And he said, it's not all about Israel. Israel isn't the root of all evil. And I agree with him. The problem is money in politics. Israel and Netanyahu is just being a good leader for his country. He's exploiting a weakness in our political system. He's taken advantage of the weaknesses in our political system for the advantage of his own country, and he's been amazingly successful about it. But he's not the only one doing it. You can you got a couple of handfuls of billionaires who are also influencing our elections. They're also buying seats. You got a handful, a bunch of handfuls of multinational corporations, meaning they're not just American companies. They don't just have American values and American interests. These are companies that span many continents, many countries where they have their influence or might even have their headquarters somewhere else. I think the reason people go crazy about Israel, or some people, kind of like Dave Smith has said, because it's being exploited by a foreign nation, and that kind of goes against our sovereignty. It's an example of how we're not completely sovereign, and it's scary. It could be it could be Afghanistan, Ireland, the UK. It makes us feel as people that we're not completely free. But back to the problem, and the way we fix it is we get the money out of our politics. The weakness in our political system is it can be bought. And Israel's just one of a whole list of factions and power players that are using it to their advantage.
Don't you think that's an issue with capitalism itself, though, too, as well? When everything's for sale, your government's for sale, the people are for sale. I mean, I'd like Kyle to kind of expand a little bit on that. Like, that could be the issue because, and once again, I know you're a foreign policy wonk, and that's why you're here. That's why I love you. Well, I love you because you're big. You're the big ragu, Kyle Anzalone himself. But aside from that, I know the foreign policy part, and we met at Freedom Fest in Vegas one year. That was fun. But I mean, economics of libertarian economics is still capitalism, right? It's still. I don't believe it's out there to protect the most vulnerable. I do believe that it's misunderstood, and a lot of people think that the economics of a libertarian make them feel selfish and narcissist, but it's about making sure the big entity doesn't come over and monopolize and take care of everything and control everything. So I understand that part of it. But if there's anything, do you want to defend capitalism right now, Kyle, or talk back against it or defend the system? Go right ahead. Jump in if you can answer Miguel's question. I'm speaking too much right now.
I mean, capitalism is essential because you need prices to determine how people value things, right? You can't this was one of the main problems that the Soviet Union had. They didn't have prices. They didn't know, what values that raw materials had and where they were ultimately needed in end use products. And so you don't have individual people to bid on those products, and the government just assigns where they go, and you end up with shortages of products that people need, and you end up with surpluses of things that people don't want and throw in the trash that are completely useless. That's why they're comically like the Soviet cars were all pieces of junk and things like that. The money in politics is an issue that I really think libertarians need to find some way to grapple with. I don't have any good solutions yet. I mean, the whole Citizens United case was about somebody promoting a documentary. I think the organization was actually named Citizens United, and they were trying to advertise a documentary during one of Hillary Clinton's presidential runs that was critical of Hillary Clinton. And they said that they couldn't do that because that was illegal campaign spending. And so the Supreme Court went pretty far the other way by basically saying anybody could spend whatever money they want on campaigns, and anybody includes any organization. And so maybe that's where like the U.S. government could draw a distinction by saying that individuals could spend their money and advertise, but organizations can't. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's a good solution to this. I guess as a libertarian, my ideal solution would be stripping so much power away from government that companies aren't trying to buy congressional seats or fund presidents so they could determine who's the next person appointed to the board of the FDA so they could get their drug approved, right? Like if we remove a lot of the economic incentives to being able to control government by stripping away the power that government has, then there's just less financial incentive for companies to go out and spend billions of dollars buying elections.
Publicly funded elections, right? That should be the way it goes. Once again, especially your primaries too, they're publicly funded. You get private access TV to have debates, whatnot. Therefore, the people with money can't protect themselves and not participate. They're like, we don't have to participate in the debate. It will only get us in trouble if I have to answer some questions. I'd rather just spend my money out there doing other things that promote me.
Who gets to determine who's on the debate stage then? Because that's I don't like that one.
Signatures.
So like a state would pass a law saying that anybody who gets 1,000 signatures gets to be up on the debate stage, and no regulator or government bureaucrat gets to decide that, oh, this person's views are too extreme, we can't have them up on stage.
I mean, yeah, why not?
I mean, that's
why not?
At least a practical system. You know what I mean?
I guess I would set parameters that are like so you
being able to donate to candidates.
You want to make sure that the reason why you just don't want anybody on stage. What's the reason why you think it doesn't make sense to have everybody on stage? too much of the riffraff will get up there, or some people are not serious? Or what's your argument there?
My concern is that if you had a public debate, right, like where the government or some government entity hosted the debate, that would give the government the power to decide who was on the debate stage.
Not if there are rules that are set that the public sees, agrees on, and then we, you know what I'm saying? If we had fair elections, you can have a referendum vote. These are the rules set for the state of Kentucky to be on the state ballot, blah, blah, blah. Let's vote on them. Let's not vote on them. You come to a system, and boom, now the system's in play. People adhere to the system. The people who do the legwork and show that it's serious. In other words, you set the system, which makes it that if somebody wants to get on that debate stage or wants to get on that ballot, they have to present some level of seriousness, right, and meet these certain credentials, the certain criteria. And then you get people on the debate stage, and then they have the debate out there, and nobody can just get billionaire money and, you know, take care of the billionaire. Now they're on the debate stage. It's publicly funded. The rules are the same. Now that debate, the debate over ideas, right, becomes more important than the debate over me protecting my donor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I guess I worry we give government control over the debates. Eventually, the government's going to decide who is participating in the debates, right? It's only going to be a matter of time.
Now making the rules, the corporate entity,
probably
parties?
probably slightly. Not. I'm not saying it's a great situation, but I am saying it's probably slightly better. It's also worth noting that in the race we're talking about here, Kentucky 4, Massey versus Ed, whatever the hell his name is, Ed refused to debate Massey. And so that didn't even make a difference. Massey had like 8 debates against himself because the guy wouldn't show up to a single one of them.
Yeah. Also, there was a closed primary in a, once again, publicly funded election, shutting out libertarians, shutting out independents. He lost that election by like less than 12,000 votes. It was like a little bit over 11,000 votes, I believe. And there's about 70,000 registered independents and a few libertarians in that district right there that could have voted for him if it was an open primary. Once again, it's a publicly funded primary. If I have to pay for it, I should be able to vote in it. At least that's the way I feel. But ballot access,
I do agree with you on open versus closed primaries.
What's that?
I'm in 100% agreement with you that there shouldn't be closed primaries.
Yeah.
If it's an election, people should be able to vote.
That was another death by 1,000 cuts. Miguel, did you get your answer? Do you want to push back, make any statements?
It was more underscoring one of your statements, but I got a question for Kyle, and it's kind of a question I've asked before that I'm grappling with. I love the idea of publicly funded elections as an idea of how to get all of this private money out of politics, of how to get money in general out of politics. So you can have to put some limits on it. But won't that lead to a situation where the people that can get the most recognized, the people that will really get a chance to break through and get public recognition are always going to be celebrities or people in media? People that are already known are going to have a huge advantage over the wonky policy guy who might have all the solutions to healthcare, but he can't get recognized. He has no name recognition because he's going up against a Pierce Morgan or a Donald Trump or some media celebrity. How do we put limits on how much you could spend on an election, but not leave ourselves in a situation where every election is going to be like Tucker Carlson versus Jon Stewart?
I mean, that's a great point, because even if you had a publicly funded election, what's to stop somebody who, has billions of their own dollars from, just promoting themselves, and they claim, oh, it's outside of the election. With $1 billion, if you're running as a presidential candidate, you could fly over the country anywhere you want, where somebody else who's relying only on public money may have some real constraints on that. Additionally, my other concern with the publicly funded elections is how long does it take until some guy, some Nick Fuentes type takes, $10,000 of public money to run for a congressional seat in Kentucky or whatever state it is, and they go up there and they say a whole bunch of neo-Nazi shit. They're talking about how we got to get rid of the Jews, how we should kill the Mexicans or the black, like all kinds of just very violent. At some point in time, some government official is going to say, well, we need a regulator to decide if this person is a candidate that we could give public money to. And once that happens, then the government controls who gets to run in elections like it's Iran.
Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope. You just can't let that happen. You have to be closer to free speech absolutism. You can't make those value judgments. Let the public see that there are true racists out there. Let the public see that there are true anti-Semites out there.
Got a point.
The answer is not less speech. The answer is more speech.
I'm with him on this.
I mean, I 100% agree with you on the philosophy of it. I just don't, and I say this as a libertarian who believes it, when I just go out and look around, most people don't agree with us on this issue. And so I think it's just predictable that we're going to end up in a route where there's no more like true public funded elections as governments let the candidates who get public money to run for office.
Big ups to Jerry Alatalo in the chat, making the and India out there too as well. That's Miguel Santiago and Josh Sleepy J throwing his hat into the ring. We are here with Kyle Anzalone. This is Drive Time in the Morning. If you want to give us a call, 561-247-2721. We're going to do this every weekday from on Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Kyle Anzalone will be here with us on Thursdays. Yesterday was Wednesday. We had Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski here. Tuesday, we had Nico House. And tomorrow, we're going to have Assange activist and good friend Andrew Zygmunt will be joining us on Fridays. Monday is the only open day right now. Well, it looks like I'm going to rotate some guests in there, whatnot. But we need you guys to do the work out there. I am still demonetized on the Truth Wire, which used to be the Convo Couch. Me and Fiorella will be doing a show today. Plus my other show, Controlled Opposition on WBAI, with Gloria Guillo and Jeremy Kuzmarov will be running. We got a lot of stuff here on these networks. I want to thank Gabrielle Freedom in the chats, the co-producer, as well as Fred Edwards and all the other people who are joining on in. We are talking a little bit about libertarian politics today, socialist politics, just politics in general. It's interesting. Miguel, you got anything else for Kyle before you get on out?
No, I got to get going. I got to hop in the car.
Well, that's what this show is about.
Thank you. Just
you can get it off your shoulders before you go to work.
Yes. I got stuff to carry on to the car. Well, just look out for my band, Rolled Whiskey. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Reverb Nation. You can get our songs on Spotify and Apple
Put the
Music.
link in the chat.
Rolled Whiskey. Thank you.
Put the link in the chat. We'll get all these knuckleheads to follow Rolled Whiskey. And
beautiful.
When's your next event? When's your
maybe
next
I'll
battle
call
of
in
the
another
band?
time, and maybe I'll call in another time and talk about how our lyrics relate to the topics on your show. But our next gig will be at Porkapalooza in St. Augustine, Florida. I'll post dates.
When's the dates?
Right now it's November. So.
Wow, that's far away.
I don't have the dates, but it's November. Yeah, we're taking the summer off to record.
Gotcha. Miguel Santiago, ladies and gentlemen, regular caller on Drive Time in the mornings. There he is. And Mr. Anzalone, it's getting kind of close to that time. We're gonna get you out of here like 3 minutes, so you can go throughout the rest of the day. Why do the libertarians hate the Bolsheviks so much?
Hey, we've got a last minute caller.
We do have a caller. You get to sidestep that question. Caller, who are you? Where are you calling from?
Mitch from Iowa.
Again?
Is my phone up?
Yes.
Mitch from Iowa.
Mitch, what are you doing, buddy?
Oh, not much. But I did want to call in and make a correction. Now, this goes all the way back to the Eisenhower days. We call it the military-industrial complex. And that is as incorrect as calling diarrhea "I found something in my pants," because we're looking at calling it like the dogs. So if somebody owns some dogs and those dogs attack someone, it's not really the dog's fault. It's the person that owns the dog's fault. So the military-industrial complex is completely controlled by the finances and the ideologues and the corrupt part of the government. So it's the movement of finance, and a lot of what we're spending on money isn't being spent on military companies in the United States. It's being spent at military companies outside the United States. So we've offshored even our military, not all of it, but a large part of it. So this financial thing is more of the owner who's telling the dogs. The military companies don't do anything without a paycheck.
Yeah. Are you saying that
So-
capitalism is the problem, or globalism is the problem, or the elites are the problem? I mean, what are you pinpointing as the problem? From what I'm understanding, it's kind of similar to what I
More
said.
the elites.
Good.
Yeah, more the elites. Well, we say military-industrial complex, and the tools being used against us aren't just the military. We're not able to get money. We're not able to get our things done. So we have a bunch of ideologues. For instance, somebody that wants a certain country to get aid, all kinds of money will be thrown to get that done. So there's this huge financial corruption going, and a lot of it's controlled by ideologues. And when you don't have the wealth to go in, and I'm not saying I'm complaining about capitalism, but I'm just saying when there's a huge batch of wealth and holdings, you have power, and you have power to get in and make corruption. And just as we're seeing with the learning centers in Minnesota, there's just so much corruption going on that, if we wanted to pay for healthcare, we almost could have paid for it just by what we're paying out in our corruption part. And there's constantly all kinds of, we don't have money to pay for anything, but we have money to pay for all kinds of other stuff. And I just don't see it. I've had, my wife went in for one surgery, and as soon as the surgery was over, I got a bill for $5 million on my copay. So I really feel that we failed on there. But I just feel it's complete failure every time we say military-industrial complex, when it's really the financial people who are controlling them. They don't make a single bomb until there is some payment.
Yeah.
They're not begging for the payment. They're being told to make the part.
So, Mitch, the problem with your phone call today is you didn't do it early enough so we can have this conversation. And I want to encourage you to call back in throughout the week. We're going to be doing this Monday through Friday, so please become a regular caller. I want to give Kyle Anzalone a chance to respond to this as we close out the show, because it is the top of the hour. Thank you for calling in, Mitch. I'm going to let Kyle Anzalone respond to that, and then we'll go from there. Thanks for calling in. And Kyle, let's give you the last word.
Yeah, I think he makes a fair point that the military-industrial complex is somewhat of a misleading title for the group of people that we're talking about here, and elites is correct. The only place I would disagree is I wouldn't say the people following orders are like dogs, because they are all people. They all have their own cognitive ability. Everybody at the Washington Post, like Matt Spoot, sure, he's only writing that article about why we should fight the Afghan war for 250 years, like we fought the Indian Wars for 250 years, because he's getting paid by somebody in the financial system to do that, getting paid well to do that. But he could also be an honest and moral person and not do it, and he chooses not to. The difference with the dog is the dog doesn't have a choice, where all these people who are part of this, more what you would think of the military industrial complex, the generals that move from the Pentagon to the weapons makers, the think tankers in Washington, D.C., the writers at these mainstream outlets, they all do have other choices. They just choose to make money and promote war.
Not wrong.
Kyle, thank you so much for joining us today. Let everybody know where they can find you and I'm going to do the closing monologue to get us out. Thanks. This was the first Thursday. I appreciate you taking a lot of the hits and I am a leftist, so we're going to have some kind of socialist friendly people coming at you just for your ideology. And I appreciate it. I think these conversations are very important and very beneficial to a lot of people out there. Kyle, thank you for being such a
I
good
never
sport.
miss Kyle's show, and I'm an independent, so
Yeah. Well, all my socialist friendly people like Misty, people like the Do Dissidents boys, they all say Kyle Anzalone is a good seed. He's good people, so
it's true.
we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, Pasta. As I'm sure the listener knows, I host the Kyle Anzalone Show Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4:45 Eastern. Later today, I'm interviewing Dan McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute, so be sure to tune into that. I write articles for the Libertarian Institute and at judgenap.com. The NAP articles are behind a paywall, but I do post them on my ads feed, so if you follow me at Kyle Anzalone _, all my shows, everything I write is there. And I also put together the viewpoints for antiwar.com.
Awesome. I go to antiwar.com at least 10 times a day. Kyle, if you can put any links that you have that you can share, put it in the chat. I would greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next Thursday. Thanks for coming on, man. All right. As we wrap up today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on the importance of diversity of thought and the peace we can cultivate with our neighbors. In a world that often feels divided, it's our differences that can actually bring us together. Every unique perspective, every story shared enriches our collective experience and fosters understanding. Remember, it's okay to disagree. It's how we handle those disagreements that truly matters. Let's embrace dialogue over debate, compassion over conflict. When we listen to one another, we open the door to meaningful relationships. By engaging in our diverse communities, we find common ground and build bridges that promote peace. So I encourage you, reach out to someone with a different viewpoint, share a meal, have a conversation, a cup of coffee, or simply just listen. Let's create a ripple effect of kindness and understanding in our neighborhoods and beyond, because sometimes conflict can often bring resolution. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Remember, together we can celebrate our diversity and pave the way for a brighter, more peaceful future. So until next time, keep the dialogue flowing and the peace growing. I want to thank Kyle Anzalone, Gabrielle Freedom in the chat, Fred Edward, all those other people, Miguel Santiago who called in, Mitch from Iowa today. Thank you so much. And to everybody else involved, Sleepy Josh, I'm Craig Pasta Jardula. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, with Andrew Zigman from Action for Assange.
Action for Assange.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I messed that up. We'll see you tomorrow out there. Go check out Controlled Opposition today on WBAI. It's on the Pasta to Go channel. Check out the Truth Wire later on today. We got a lot of shows there. Kyle Anzalone's doing some stuff. Judge Knapp is going crazy. We're here going crazy. We love you. We'll see you tomorrow on Drive Time in the Morning. Peace.